The price of kindness. They came at dawns, not quietly, not cautiously, but with the kind of certainty that only belonged to those who believed they had already won. The first sign was the light, not the soft, gentle glow of morning that crept over the horizon in gold and warmth. This light fractured, shattered, broken into pieces by wings that cut across the rising sun. Shadows stretched across the land, long and sharp, slicing over the ruins like blades drawn slowly from a sheath. Then came the sound, a distant thunder, growing, building, until the air itself trembled beneath it. Wingbeats, many, too many. Kale was already awake. He had not truly slept. Not after the nights. Not after hers. He stood at the broken edge of the tower, boots planted against cracked stone, gaze fixed on the horizon. Watching, waiting, knowing. The cubs were behind him, curled close together in the deepest shadow the ruined tower could offer. Their small bodies pressed tightly against one another, wings tucked, tails coiled, as if trying to make themselves smaller. Invisible, but fear could not be hidden. He could feel it. A constant, quiet tremor in the air behind him. And the great dragons. She was awake. He had felt it the moment it happened. Not through sound, not through movement, but through presence. The ruins had changed. The air had shifted. Something vast had risen. Slowly, deliberately, the ground trembled as she moved. Stone groaned beneath her weight, cracks spreading in fine lines across the tower floor as her massive form unfolded. Her wings stretched. Not fully, not yet, but enough. Enough to remind the world of what she was. Power rippled across her scales, dark and gleaming, each movement controlled, contained, like a storm held just beneath the surface. Waiting, Kale did not turn to look at her. He didn't need to. He could feel her, like standing beside a mountain that could choose to fall. Stay behind me, he said quietly. The words were automatic. Instinct. Protect. Even when it made no sense. Even when it was useless. He didn't know if the cubs understood. Didn't know if they would listen. But he said it anyway. Behind him there was movement. A soft shift. They were closer now. Closer than before. If that was even possible. Above, the sky filled. Shapes circled. Descending. The sun rose behind them, turning their forms into silhouettes of black and gold. Wings beat in steady rhythm, controlled and practiced. Metal flashed along their backs, armor catching the first light of day. Dragons. Not wild. Not free. Controlled. Ridden. Bound. Dragon riders. Kale's jaw tightened. Of course, he muttered. They had found them. He had known they would. There had never been a question of if. Only whens. And dawns. Dawn was a hunter's hour. The first rider broke formation. Diving low. Circling the ruins once. Twice. Close enough that Kale could see the details. The armors. Polished steel etched with markings he didn't recognize. The rider's posture. Straight. Confident. Unafraid. The dragon beneath him snarled, smoke curling faintly from its jaws, its eyes sharp and focused. Disciplined. Trained. Weapons. More riders followed. Dozens. They spread out, forming a wide circle above the ruins. Cutting off escape. Not that there had been once. A voice rang out. Clear. Amplified. By order of the crown, surrender the hatchlings. The words echoed across the ruins, bouncing off broken stone, carrying far beyond the tower. Authority. Absolute. Kale exhaled slowly. The answer came easily. No. There was no hesitation. No doubt. He didn't turn. Didn't step back. Didn't look behind him. He knew they were there. That was enough. The sky shifted. The circle tightened. The riders descended. Slow at first, then faster. Steel glinted. Weapons were drawn. Bows, spears, blades designed for creatures far larger than men. The dragons snarled, their wings beating harder, faster, driving them downward in a controlled fall. And then, the great dragon stepped forward. Just one step, and the world changed. It wasn't fire. Not yet. It was something deeper. Something older. Heat rolled outward from her, invisible but undeniable. It pressed against Kale's skin, sank into his bones, settled into the air itself. The ground trembled. Not from impact. From presence. The riders hesitated. Just for a moment. Just long enough. Because something in them, something buried deep beneath training and discipline, recognized what stood before them. Not prey, not target, something else, something ancient, something that did not yield. That moment, that fraction of hesitation, was all it took. She moved, and the sky broke. Flame erupted. Not wild, not uncontrolled. It was precise. A line of fire that carved through the air like a blade, striking the first rider before he could react. His scream barely began before it ended. His dragon twisted, wings faltering, spiraling downward in a plume of smoke and fire. Another burst. Another lines. Another rider fell. Chaos followed. The formation shattered. Dragons veered away, scattering in all directions as the air filled with heat and ash. Commands were shouted, lost in the roar of wings and flame. But they were not untrained. Not unprepared. They adapted. Quickly. Reforming. Spacing themselves out. Attacking from different angles. They had fought dragons before. Kale could see it. In the way they moved. In the way they didn't panic. But this was different. They had fought dragons. Yes, but not one who stood her ground. Not one who chose to fight. Not one who had something to protect. Kale didn't move. Couldn't. Because the battle wasn't where he thought it would be. It wasn't above. It wasn't around. It was behind him. One rider broke from the others. Not toward the dragons. Toward him. Kale. The humans. The weakness. The easiest target. The simplest solution. End the humans. Break the bond. Take the cubs. The rider raised his bow. Drew. Released. The arrow flew. Vast. Silent. Deadly. Kale saw it too late. A flicker. A line of movement cutting through the chaos. His body reacted. But too slow. Too tired. Too humans. There was no time. No space. No chance. Then, a blur of silver blue. A small shape. Moving faster than fear. Faster than thought. Thrown into the path of death. The impact was soft. Too soft. A sound that barely existed. And then, weight, light, fragile, falling. Kale's hands moved without thought. He caught it. No. The word broke from him raw and sharp. The cub lay in his arms. Small. Too small. The arrow had pierced clean through its wing. The shaft jutted out at an angle, dark blood already spreading across its pale scales. It soaked into the silver blue, turning it darker, duller, wrong. The cub trembled. Its breath came in shallow, uneven pulls. Kale's world narrowed. Everything else faded. The roar of the battles. The heat. The sky. Gone. There was only this. The weight in his arms. The warmth of blood against his hands. The flicker of life slipping away. "I'm sorry," he whispered, his voice shaking. "I'm so." A shadow fell over him. Massive. Unavoidable. The great dragon landed. Hard. The impact cracked the ground beneath her, stones splitting outward in jagged lines. Dust exploded into the air, momentarily obscuring everything. The battle stopped. Not gradually. Not slowly. It stopped. Because something had changed. Something far worse than fire. She saw the cub, saw the blood, saw him holding it, and the world changed. The sky darkened, not with clouds, with a presence. The light itself seemed to dim, as if something had stepped between the world and the sun. The air burned, not with heat, with a pressure, with something that pressed against every living thing, demanding attention, demanding silence. Every rider froze, every dragon stilled, because they felt it. They understood. This was no longer a fight, no longer a hunt. It was something else entirely. Her roar split the world. It wasn't anger. It wasn't rage. Those things were simple. This was deeper. It carried through the air, through the ground, through bone and breath. It tore through the sky and shattered whatever courage remained in those who heard it. It was loss, and it was absolute. The riders broke, not by command, not by strategy, by instinct. They turned, fled. Some dove low, pushing their dragons harder than they should, desperate to escape the presence that now filled the ruins. Others climbed, wings beating frantically as they gained height, distance, anything that might put space between them and what they had awakened. There was no formation, no orders, only escape. Because they understood. They had made a mistake, a fatal one, and if they stayed, they would not survive it. The sky emptied. Silence followed. Slow, heavy, broken only by one thing. The shallow, uneven breath of the cub. Kale knelt in the dust. His hands shook. His heart pounded. Stay with me," he whispered. The cub's eyes flickered. Dim, fading, but still there. It looked at him. Not afraid. Not in pains. Just there. Leftovers, it murmured faintly. The word was small. Barely sound. But it hit harder than anything else. Kale choked on a laugh. A broken, fragile sound. "Yeah," he whispered, "all you want." His hands pressed gently against the wound. Useless. He knew it. But he tried anyway. The great dragon lowered her head beside them. Slowly, carefully, as if afraid of causing more harm. Her massive presence no longer filled the space with fear. No, it was something else. Something quiet. Something watching. Waiting. Trusting. For the first time. Truly trusting. Kale looked up. Into her eyes. Those same brilliant blue eyes that had once held nothing but power and fury. No, there was something else. Something shared. Something understood. "I won't let it die," he said. The words came without hesitation. Without doubt. A promise. Not hope. Not wish. A promise. She studied him. Deeply. As if weighing his words against everything she knew of the world. Then, "Neither will I." The words settled between them. Heavy. Certain. And for a moment. Just a moment. The world held still. But it would not last. It never did. Far beyond the ruins. The riders regrouped. Those who survived. Those who fled. They would return. Stronger. Smarter. Angrier. They would bring more. More riders. More weapons. More dragons. The crown would not forget this. Would not forgive it. War did not end because one side fled. It grew. It adapted. It returned. Stronger. Crueler. Unforgiving. And this was no longer about capturing cubs. This was about control. About power. About a force they could not allow to exist. Back in the ruins, a human knelt in the dust. A dragon watched beside him. 4 small lives huddled close. And something had changed. Not in the world. The world remained cruel. unforgiving, but in them, in the bond forged between hunger and mercy, between fear and trust, between something that should never have stood together, and did, kindness. It had started with scraps of bread, with a single choice, small, insignificant, and now it had become something far greater, something dangerous, because kindness, true kindness, did not bend, did not break, and when it was threatened, it did not disappear. It fought, and this time, the world would learn what that was worth.